What's up, guys? Welcome to a very special episode of Out of the Shadows. I am here with my people from MOAI Apparel. Guys, please say hello.
Hey, Matt. How's it going? My name is Chad Abs. This is my wife, Marissa, and we are the owners of MOAI Apparel.
Yes, I've known these guys for almost a year now. You know, when I started off, they were very supportive of me. One of the first major and genuine connections I made. I can't speak highly enough of them. I'm wearing some of their apparel, their sunglasses, the t-shirt. I highly recommend investing in it. It's affordable. It's awesome. And hey, now is the time to support local businesses. I'm just saying. So on a more serious note, so why did you guys start MOAI, and what's kind of your mission and goals with MOAI?
Well, we started MOAI because we were struggling to find community. And so Marissa and I are really originally from Sturgis, Michigan, which during COVID-19 is actually where we're staying right now with family. But we moved down to Miami about 5 years ago. We got married 6 years ago. And after we got married, we decided, listen, if we don't want to be stuck here in Sturgis, Michigan, we need to move somewhere before we have children because we're living a very comfortable lifestyle with our parents living close. We have a lot of support here. So if we want to go do something, live somewhere warm where we don't have to deal with the cold weather ever again, we needed to make that move before we had children. So we moved down to Miami. And once we got down to Miami, we really struggled finding community like we had up here in Michigan. Miami is a very transient town, so people are kind of coming and going. They come there for work for a few years. They, educate themselves. They improve themselves, and then they kind of go on to, bigger and better things. And in doing so, we didn't feel that there was much of a Midwest feel in Miami to where people connected. You could go and talk with people, or even being accountable with people, or being able to encourage people and motivate people. It was just difficult to have face-to-face interaction with people and build long-lasting friendships. So we struggled for this for, like I say, 4.5 years. MOAI just started, it's been just over a year now. And we decided that, listen, if we can't find what we're looking for, then maybe we need to start it. So Marissa and I were both working full-time jobs. I was unhappy with where I was at. She was unhappy with where she was. We just weren't, the jobs weren't very fulfilling. So I was doing something that seemed very, very monotonous. I was working in the golf course industry, and it was just kind of, a member comes in, you get their tip, and then they leave, and then it's just that every day. So there wasn't really an opportunity for much growth in that. I didn't feel like I was using my skill set very well, but it was a job, and it enabled us to save up a lot of money to come to the conclusion where in 2019, we made the decision, listen, we've saved up enough money right now. This year, we're going to choose to invest it in something. We didn't really know what it was or where it was going, but that's essentially what we did. So,
well, Chad touched on just like we needed something, and we felt that not only can we fulfill our own need through building a community, but if we need it, there's certainly and undoubtedly other people who feel alone at times or are striving to find a meaningful connection, not just, hey, how are you, in a traditional way of saying, this is the appropriate thing you say, but really caring and just trying to, I guess, build up like an empowerment community, not just an apparel brand, but people that connect and stay connected because they have something deep in common, and it's that drive. Like, we've always been accountability partners to each other, and we've always strived to build friendships that are accountability for us and we are accountability for them. Really checking in and really being like, hey, you said you're going to do this. Did you follow through? Like, what's up? How can I help with that? So that was the heart behind MOAI, and it's grown and expanded. It's been a slow progress, but meeting people like you, you were one of the first people that we really started to talk back and forth with a lot, who really opened up to us. Like, hey, I trust you guys that you really are what you say you are. Like, you care, and I'm going to trust that you care. And I'm going to kind of share and stuff. So it takes, a lot of consistency, I think, we kept putting it out there. And it was really awesome because you were one of the first people that really trusted that and said, hey, yeah, let's talk. Like, let's get real. Let's talk about, all this stuff that's going on in life. How can we help each other, benefit from each other, stuff like that. So that was an exciting part for us. You kind of came in not long after we got pretty serious on like social media and really building the brand and everything.
Yeah, no, and you know, like you said, I don't know, you guys just seemed super genuine, and the fact that there was interaction at all, you know, like most people, and I'm sure you've experienced this, like you'll get the little like, oh hey, nice job, or a simple like, and there's not really a back and forth. But like you said, you know, I didn't realize that you guys had just started, but yeah, it was the same deal, extremely early on for me as well. And one of the interesting things that I find about you guys, and you just said all this, but you really seek to promote other people and, you know, build everyone else up as well, while obviously still investing in your own time. But I see a lot out there that usually with anyone who has their own content, to me, it's like at best, they're neutral when it comes to other people and don't really say anything. At the worst, they're very much trying to make themselves the top number one, and maybe indirectly even dissing other people. So obviously, you know, you stress the importance of wanting to build a community, which I think is awesome. Is there anything else like in your lives that you think kind of drove you towards like, hey, you know what, instead of worrying about just us, let's build everyone up?
Well, we grew up both close to each other in this very small town, and while it's kind of like a podunk town in some ways, like, you know, back roads, dirt roads, all that kind of stuff, that's kind of, I guess, like the mindset that I guess I was raised with in my family. I grew up, you know, just down the road from my grandparents, my uncles, and everybody. Like, family was always close, so it was always this idea of, hey, like, we need to do something in the yard. Like, oh, well, grandpa's got the tools. Let's just, you know, run down there and grab those. So it was always like this idea of giving back and forth between family members and then friends. And even in the town, just being in a smaller town, there isn't a lot of that like transient come and go, like what we experience in Miami, right? So even like when you say he grew up actually in the town, I grew up out in the country, but even in the town, wasn't it like that where
And I mean, you know, again, coming from the small town living where I guess we don't realize that maybe this is a small town mindset as opposed to just what would you say, like a Midwest mindset or people who love on others mindset. But give you a few examples that there were people inside the community who, you know, they wanted to remodel their homes or they wanted to put up drywall. So people would come out and we would help them put up drywall. Now, I was fortunate to where I didn't really know how to put up drywall, but I was willing to help someone just because I enjoyed being around people and I loved helping. So not only did it help them become better by one, having a nicer room or a nicer house inside with the drywall being put up, but it gave me the opportunity to learn. So I got to learn how to put up drywall by helping someone. So there's many things in life where, you know, if we're willing to help out other people, there's a lot of things that one, we can learn from, and it can help make them stronger, and the stronger that they become, it's really just a snowball effect where we all can get stronger together. The more we progress and the more we learn and the more we push others to learn, I just think that that's the stronger it's going to make us. Like, if I'm just continue to worry about beating someone down or trying to always, you know, one up them, it just doesn't help me, because I'm always having to search for new things for myself to how I can become better. But when we're trying to push other people to be better, in the long run, it ends up helping us be better because we can always learn from those people, you know, at the top. And a great example of this is that, yes, we were new a year ago. You know, you were some learning and getting into the community, but at some point, Tony Robbins, Gary Vee, they're not going to be there anymore. People are going to have to take their place. And I think with us as a brand and the people that we're really, really close to, we're hoping that you guys are the ones that take their place. So that's what we're trying to connect with. Like, you know, a lot of these guys have so many followers that they can't engage with all of those people right now. And there's going to be people that need the mentoring to be able to take their place, to be able to motivate the world, encourage the world like they are doing right now. And those are the people we're looking to connect with. We want to connect with the next Tony Robbins, the next people who actually want to change the world and influence the world. And I think a lot of that comes from, you know, just being kind and genuine and compassionate. And those are the people we seem to really connect with the most.
I know too, back to your question about what might have inspired that mindset, or when that is, we both grew up in sports. We're playing a lot of team sports always.
That's true.
And that's a very, like, I guess I think about sports being just a really great thing for kids when it comes to not only the physical activity and all these things, but the concept of a team, which is essentially like a super basic concept. But that's exactly what we're doing. It's just teamwork. Like, hey, we're a team. We're all here building each other up. We all have the same goal in mind. So if we can help each other get to that win, then we all win.
Which is actually very interesting because about 6 years ago, I had torn my ACL, so that ruined my baseball career. That was my goal, to play professional baseball. And that left a big space inside of me where I felt something was gone and lost. And I didn't really have much passion or really know what there was for me in life. So I started golfing. And I grew up golfing, so I was pursuing golfing as a profession. And one would think golfing is a very individualistic sport. There's not much team in it, so everybody's against themselves. But something very interesting is that golfers have a big community, and they're always trying to help others improve. So in golf, it's not that any of us really know how to swing the golf club correctly. There's many different feels that a lot of us sometimes have a hard time vocalizing and trying to understand, like, okay, I read this book, but I don't quite understand that. So the golfing community, it's amazing. I'm like, what are you feeling when he says this? Like, where should your hands be? It's like, oh, well, he means the wrist should be cupped this way or this way. So just those types of things, just helping each other out is, it's something amazing where essentially we're all competing against each other, but the support there is just something special. So I guess that's where a lot of the support comes from, like Melissa said, is in sports and just life in general.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a really interesting point, and this might have been a minor thing that you said, but it really struck a chord with me. How you tore your ACL and you were planning on, getting into baseball, and that kind of left a gap, and it was difficult. And I can relate to that in the fact that, I've kind of briefly touched on this with you guys before, and I think I've even mentioned this in a couple of videos. I have bursitis and tendonitis in my shoulders, as well as bursitis in my hips, minor knee issues, a few various things. And when I was young, like straight out of high school, I started getting very much into, lifting weights, getting stronger. I was very much on a fitness kick. And it wasn't necessarily something I was trying to pursue as a career per se, but it was a huge passion. It felt really good, seeing the results. It filled a major gap. And then coming up against those injuries, I slowly had to just get out of all of that. And then to kind of compound and make things more difficult, I was in bands for a long time, from about 12 to 22. And it started to interfere with my playing. Like, I'd play bass for a few hours and be all of a sudden like, oh my God, what is this? And I toughed it out for probably a solid 2 years. Just, I'd stretch like crazy. I'd ice like crazy, because I'm like, I'm not giving this up. I'm not giving this up. And not to say there's not a way to, fix things like that in some scenarios, depending upon the severity of your injury. But I very much agree with you. I mean, like, not being able to lift the way I used to, kind of having to reduce the amount of time I could play music. That was very difficult, because not only was it disappointing, but, I was very much of the mind that I wanted our band to make it. I wanted to be a professional musician. And losing that, it's almost like you lose a piece of your identity. And you're like, well, now what do I do?
Right.
And I think it's tough for a lot of people. And in some ways, this almost sounds overly positive, but it's a good thing in that it really did force me to realize I have to be able to pursue different things, because, there are various things where life happens, whatever it is, and you almost have to switch. All right, well, what's my outlet now? So I think, it's a difficult thing. And I'm sure, would you agree? Like, was it kind of like losing a piece of your identity? I'm assuming it was a difficult time.
Yeah, it was like losing all of my identity, because, from the age of 13 all the way up until, it seems like eternity, but I guess in reality, it was only like 6 years, 19, I think, is when I ended up tearing my ACL. But yeah, I mean, the summers were spent out in the batting cage, out in my front lawn that we had, hitting baseballs for 8 hours a day, just trying to become the best that I could possibly be. with that in mind of playing professional baseball, and that was it. Like, you know, eat, sleep, dream baseball. Like, that was all it was about. But as I look back, you know, there's a lot of opportunities that I now have that I may have missed out on if I was somewhere else playing baseball. For example, the injury is what brought me back to my hometown. I was playing college baseball in Texas, so that injury brought me back here, and that's where Marissa and I met. So I'd say that's a pretty special opportunity.
I would have never existed in his life. Yep.
Well, no, and that's so very true, and it's you know, it's one of those things where it's very hard, and I think it's very easy for people who suffer that kind of a loss to get very caught up in like, oh my God, man, like it's gone, that's all I had, and they can become bitter and just kind of, well, whatever I got, I'm going to settle for. But as you said, you can see a lot of different things. Like for me, one thing that I've thought about too is with you know, kind of having to reduce the amount of time I dedicated to music, and ultimately then deciding to get out of the band. I mean, now at this age, no way. If someone handed me a record contract right now, I'd be like, nope. The touring life, you know, you're not home all the time. There's a very, you know, very much a party community, shall we say, which is hard to kind of stay away from. I think that even at you know, 20, no matter how young I was, 18, like that would have been, it would have presented a lot of problems, and I think ultimately I would have gotten out of it one way or another. So as much as it can be a bad thing, like you say, it ends up, you think about, well, what would I have missed out on, or what would have played out had that thing not happened? So backpedaling a little bit, you know, like I said, you guys are really good at forming genuine connections. You know, I see a lot of people interacting with you. Is there any advice you could give on how do you form that genuine connection? You know, because I know your content. It's not just people saying, you know, hey, good job. Like you have genuine conversations. There's back and forth. Like people know you guys. It's not just, oh, thumbs up. Like is there any particular way you go about forming those connections?
Well, just what we did to start, like we didn't really know what we were doing when it came to how do we build a brand, because we've never done it before and we're trying to figure it out as we go. But the one thing that I think we've always kind of known is just trying to talk to people. And so we just carried over exactly what we would do if we were sitting down with someone brand new in a real face-to-face conversation. What do? You ask questions. You ask a lot of questions. So I think that's one thing that really helped us grow those connections, is because it wasn't just commenting on something that they said. It was usually trying to ask a question to learn something about them through what we'd already seen. So take what you know and dive a little deeper, because we already know what we saw. So just commenting on that is great. But if we can ask a question that helps us learn about that person more, then it starts this cycle of, okay, now I know more about you. So now when you say something in a future video, I know maybe a little bit more than what other people know. And now my comment can reach even deeper because I'm using the information I already know.
Yeah.
And just like direct messages, just asking questions. That's something that I've actually learned from Chad, because I actually grew up super like introverted, super shy, never would have talked on camera, never really even tried to get to know people very well. Like it was more of, if you want to get to know me, then you approach me and we'll be friends. But it was never the other way around. So Chad's actually really helped me grow in that area, where now I'm excited. Like I want to get to know people. I don't care if you come up to me, I'm going to come up to you. And it's still something I work on, because it's still, you know, I still have insecurities about, oh, you know, what if I come off wrong or all these things. But he's just such an extrovert that he doesn't care. He's just like, whoo, I want to know about you, man. Tell me all about it. I'm super excited and pumped. He's got this energy that people just love. And I've learned a lot from him on that.
And I think, you know, asking questions is the big thing. Obviously, we want people to know about us as a brand, or anytime you're meeting someone new, you know, you want them to ask you things. You want to be able to share things. Like there's so many things that I enjoy learning. Let's say it's real estate or the stock market or philosophy. There's so many things that I want to talk about, or board games. But the first thing really to get to know someone and create a true friendship is just by asking questions and trying to get to know them. Like, because you can then base this like, okay, I want to learn about real estate, but this person doesn't know anything about real estate. So that's not something we're going to be able to talk about, or, you know, have a deep discussion on. So the more you just try to get to know other people, to get, number one, getting to know what makes them tick, gets them excited, what are they passionate about, what do they want to do in life. And that was something that I always tried to use in business when I was in management and stuff, is if I could figure out what my employees' dreams were, what type of vacations they enjoyed going on, what types of hobbies they had, that I could encourage them in the workplace, whether it was financially. Some people are, they enjoy making more money so that they can spend more money on a hobby, while there's other people who want to travel the world. So maybe they needed more time off to be able to go do the things that they are passionate about. And that's how it is with us trying to create the community and to be able to motivate and encourage people, is that once you know the things that make them super happy, you can start encouraging in those things. And that's really where you can really create a really deep, strong, relationship. The other thing is knowing the things that people have struggled with, and then knowing the things that have been difficult for people, that if we know those things and someone posts about, my dog hurt its leg, well, most people are like, okay, your dog hurt its leg, like no big deal. But if this person, absolutely loves dogs and their dogs are their everything, like some people love their children, then that's a big issue
deal
for them. And that's a big deal. And just like leaving a like or a comment, like we have to find out what people care about and what they're expressing or experiencing. Because for some people, we don't realize that if their dog hurts their leg, they could really be down or having a difficult time. Whereas it's just like, oh, they're just posting a normal, social media post just to let everybody know that their dog hurts their leg. And that's not it. Is that they're really hurt by this. And this is a time that we can really go and stand behind them to encourage them and to help them get through a difficult time. So, those are the big things with asking questions, to find these things out so that we can truly be friends with people and commit long-lasting relationships and actually care.
Well, I know something too that I've actually learned from you, Matt. I've heard you say it multiple times, but that you kind of go into a conversation with the mindset of, I know nothing. Because even if somebody is an expert on something that you feel you're an expert on, that there's still something in there, like that 10% of what you don't know that they could share. And you can learn that 10%. And I've heard you say that, and that's really stuck with me, of even if you know 90% of something, there's still 10% of that unknown, and you can learn that from somebody else. And so just being willing to go into it and listen and just be like, hey, I'm here to learn, with that kind of mentality and attitude, I think people notice that and are, they're drawn to that, because there are a lot of people who don't really listen or who don't really care to ask.
No, and that's awesome, and that was really cool, because I was about to say, you might know 90%, you don't know 10. You quoted my exact numbers, so that was really, really cool, because I was like, oh, she noticed that, and then that's like the whole post right there. But yeah, no, and I very much, I had to learn that. That wasn't something that I realized off the bat. Actually, what helped me learn that was the current teacher I have for my martial arts. He's extremely knowledgeable, and prior to going to him, I had done a lot of independent study on the style. I'd been practicing on my own. I'd been learning things on my own. And what almost fueled me a little bit more was when we started working together. He's like, all right, well, I want to kind of see where you're at. I know that you have prior knowledge of this. And he asked me to do a few techniques, and I was happily and luckily able to do them. And he's like, all right, well, we're going to bypass the basics because you know them. So let's go. And it wasn't that I didn't want to listen. It's just that he would start something, and I'm like, oh my God, I know what he's talking about. And I'd get so excited, and I'd want to jump, and I'd be just waiting to jump in, or I'd be like filling in his sentences. And he's a very nice guy. He's a very humble guy. He never like said anything about it. He wasn't frustrated, but I started realizing, I'm like, you're missing information because you keep interjecting. You're waiting to talk, and you're not absorbing the things that you don't know. So whether I've learned this move a million times, I guarantee he's going to tell me something I didn't realize. And that's not an easy thing to do, because everyone wants to share their own information. You want to make that connection. You get excited when someone talks about something that you're passionate about. And I think it takes a lot of mental discipline to be like, you know what, why don't I listen to them talk instead of waiting for my turn to speak?
Mm-hmm.
The other thing, I think your answer to that question was awesome, and I very much agree, and those are amazing points. Asking questions, getting to know, especially what someone's passions are, what they love. People put different values on different things. Dogs.
Yep, you got dogs on his coffee cup. I saw.
So, but it's very true. Different people value different things. Someone, like you say, someone's post could just be, oh, bummer, Sharky's paw got hurt today, and it's the dog with the little cast, and they're all right. But like you say, that could be very emotionally impactful. That could be, this person's main source of just compassion and love and companionship. And I think it's important to remember, not everyone thinks the way we do. People have different values on things. People have different reference points for things in their life. And then also to kind of shift a little from that question, how you said, Marissa, that you were more introverted. I was extremely introverted in the past, and I suppose I can be at times. I guess now I'd call it a bit more reserved, shall we say, but was very introverted. I was very quiet. I was very self-conscious. I was very worried about what people would think of me. And I guess the fortunate thing for me is, I can't explain exactly where, but somewhere along the way, I kind of decided that I was like, well, you can learn anything you want. You can learn how to be any way you want. You can change how you are, which is true to an extent. But actually, I had read Tony Robbins' Unlimited Power, and that was the first step that I really took to being like, all right, well, I can learn to be more extroverted. I just have to figure out what those tools are. And that's kind of a gray area in the sense of, I do very much believe that we're able to change a lot more than we assume. And I think a lot more than the average person assumes. The brain is very malleable. Yes, I think and I can't be quoted on this, I think it's something around somewhere between 23 and 26 is when your brain is finished developing, but you remain malleable indefinitely. So I think it's important for people to realize you can change. There is the flip side of it, to where I do believe there's a core to you. If the core of your being is simply, like, I can say this for myself, I enjoy socializing a lot more than I ever used to, and I'm actually getting a lot out of doing these videos with friends. But at the same time, for me personally, if I need to recharge, I actually need to take time alone. That's how I recharge. That I don't think is ever going to be something it's not going to change. I'd say that's kind of a steadfast thing of me. Do you guys, obviously, Marissa, I know you said that you were a lot more introverted. Is there any major changes that you've made to where, like, if I talked to you 5-10 years ago, you'd be like, there's no way that's happening?
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, I can relate to what you said about you can change a lot, but there is still always like some core truths about what works for you. Because I know we've joked about this all the time, but like when we socialize and we go out, we're around a lot of people. It's like, when we come home, I'm like, whew, that was a lot of fun, but I'm done. Like, I'm ready to be, oh, I want to sit on the couch. I want to watch a movie. I'm just done. And Chad's like, let's go more people, more people, more people. He's like a puppy. Like, he's just so excited. He thrives. Like, he builds energy. When he's around people, he gets super energetic, and he's like ready to go. He feels great. He's got a lot of physical energy. And when he's not with people and he's alone, it's more of like, he's a lot slower moving. It's a noticeable difference. And he thrives off of the energy of other people. And I'm the total opposite, where it's like, you give me a day by myself and I'm a powerhouse. Like, yeah, I can get things done. I'm re-energized. I'm ready to go. And where in social settings, usually it kind of wears me down. Like, not to say that I don't enjoy it, because I do. I love it. I'm learning to love it too. But it's not where I get my, I guess, energy from, or it's not like a recharge for me the way it is for him. But I know a lot of things, like even with my job prior to this, that was actually a big change for me. Actually, most of the jobs that I had worked have really grown me. My very first job was as a waitress, and I was so like, that was the hardest things for me, because I went from basically, I was homeschooled, so I never was with kids in school or anything like that. I was always home.
You got guts, sister. Go on.
And so it was just like a culture shock for me. Like, what? I have to talk to people. I have to, be friendly and nice and all this stuff. Not that I wasn't friendly, but it was just hard to even know how to talk to people. And that job really probably shaped me the most because I really learned to love it. I really learned to, wow, I really enjoy being around people. I love being a server. Like, it was one of my favorite jobs. So the many things I've done. But all the way up to my last job, I started at the bottom. I was just boxing protein bars. It was a temporary job. I was looking for work, and they were like, well, after this, hey, we'd like to hire you on. And then eventually I moved up into a manager position, and then eventually I moved up all the way to work with the owner as a CFO. And I was like, I didn't want to take the job, but they needed someone to. And they're like, you're the person. I'm like, I can't do it. Like, I had a lot of self-belief issues, I had a lot of doubts about what I'm capable of. I've had that, I guess, a lot kind of growing up, and he's been always telling me, you can do a lot, you can do this. Like, you're very intelligent, you're capable of doing this, you're going to be learning a lot. And I ended up taking the position, worked in it all the way up until we started doing MOAI. Yeah. And I actually learned basically how to do accounting, which is what we do now for our own business. I learned how to do all business taxes, which we do now for our business. I learned how to use the platform that we use for our online store. It's the exact same one. So because I was willing, I guess, to take on that job, which is not something I would have done 5 years ago, or many of the things that I've done, I learned so much about what is actually helping us now. Like, we're so much further ahead as a business because I did take on that job, and I learned a lot about business through it.
Well, no, just to interject really quick, because that's a great point. I don't want to lose this. One, I don't think I could ever be a server. Don't think I could do it. Really don't. Really don't. But, and I can very much relate to that, though, in that, like you say, it's almost like, oh my God, like, how do I talk to people? Like, I can remember for a long time, like, I kind of sense how awkward I was. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, do you even know how to have a conversation? Wait till they stop talking, you moron. But I would literally, it felt like I was almost like a robot trying to learn what humans were. Cause I was like, this is something people usually say. Hey, great to see you. And then it'd be like, yeah, you too. I'm like, so that works right there.
Yeah.
And it was almost like learning this other language, like you say. And I think some of it's a byproduct also of that. I've always been about close connections, I've always been very much like, to this day, if I have the choice between, hey, there's going to be this really big party and you'll know everyone, but there's going to be quite a lot of people, versus I'm going to have 5 people over who I know very well, who I like a lot. I much prefer the intimate setting, and I always have. And I grew up with friends like that. I'd have my set, 5 group of friends or so, or whatever it was. And some of that changed over the years. But even to this day, I have 3 best friends who I remain in constant contact with. And that sounds like a very low number. And I suppose someone who has a different thought process might think, oh my God, I only have 3 true friends. But I mean, I'm like, oh my God, man, I have 3 true friends, because I've encountered people who have a larger number of people that they might associate with on a regular basis. And I suppose this is the more arrogant side of me, but I'm like, dude, I will put my 3 up against your 20 any day, because those 3 will take a bullet for me. Those 20, they don't like you that much.
Oh yeah, that's very true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm going to direct the same question to you, Chad. Is there anything, like, do you feel like there have been any major changes? Whereas, like, I asked Marissa, if I asked you 5 years ago, like, hey man, this is going to be you in 5 years, you'd have just been like, no, it's not.
So, as Marissa talks about being a waiter, so my first job was in the restaurant industry as well. I started off as a host, mainly because my family went to the restaurant, 5-6 days a week, and they were tired of, buying me all the meals and stuff like that. So, like, you work here, maybe you can start getting free meals. But, I was somewhat shy at that point as well. So being kind of pushed to be in a job where you had to communicate with people, answer the phones, greet people, seat them, and then I went on to waiting tables and, management roles and stuff like that. But yeah, I would say it was somewhat the same position. 5 years ago, though, to bring it more in vision, I would say, reading a lot of the Tony Robbins books and understanding where my mind is and how much self-doubt I had in myself, and really trying to realize who I am. I am special. I am unique. Maybe not as unique as certain people, but in my own right, I am unique, and I have the ability to make things happen. Um, 5 years ago, I was always waiting for things to happen to me. I was always, trying to connect with the right people so that they could help me have success or being able to learn from them. And just through Tony Robbins, Gary Vee, and Seth Godin, just realizing, listen, I have the opportunity to do all of these things by myself. That skill set was within me. It's all about me going out and doing those things. And I mean, there's still things I struggle with. Like, one thing that I struggle with is asking people for things, whether it's asking for help or I have a lot of questions that I want to ask. And if I want to meet somebody, if I want to get to know more about you, I have no problem asking questions. But if there's something that I want, I really struggle. Like calling restaurants on the phone, wanting to know how much stuff costs, or do you have this? I hate bothering people, and I feel like when I do that, I'm an inconvenience. So I always ask if she will call to say, hey, when we came back to Michigan, I wanted to go to Barnes and Noble and get board games. And on the ride back from the airport, I was like, Marissa, can you call Barnes and Noble and see if they're like open, when we're gonna get there? It's something inside of me that I really, really struggle with. And I've came a long way in the last 5 years, but there's still stuff out there like sales. Oh, I love people, but I hate going in and trying to like promote MOAI or asking about, would you be interested in carrying our sunglasses? That's just something like oh my gosh, like I would rather not have a company than do that. That's how difficult it is for me right now. So I have to figure out a way to be able to overcome that and to be able to work with it. So during COVID-19, being back home with family, it's given me an opportunity to learn a lot of stuff about myself. And we were talking previously about baseball and how I really felt like there was a part of me that was gone forever. And for me, it was a big part. And I've learned since being back home with family and stuff that I love to entertain people. Like if I can get someone laughing once, then I will keep going on and on and on and on. Like I just love entertaining people, and that's just who I am. Like if I can make people smile, if I can get them going, that's what I want to do. So that's been something where it's like, you know what, Chad, try to do things where you're in that entertainment position more so that you're enjoying it, and then hopefully other people are enjoying it. But when we go down and play volleyball, we can play volleyball and have fun. But once we start getting people watching us or there's eyes on me, it's just like that the emotions increase, and I'm way super more focused on playing and all those things.
Yeah.
And it's just it's amazing how I was able to realize that just from coming back home, because I have 5 siblings and I'm the oldest. So I don't know if that's just something that's, normal for the oldest child is to always want to be an entertainer to the younger ones or what. But that's something that I have learned.
So now, wait, just to clarify really quick on your last point. So when eyes are on you, do you feel more inspired and you want to keep going? Or when there's too many eyes, you feel like, wait. No, you want to keep going.
Yeah, I want to keep going. Yeah.
The more
Okay.
eyes, more Chad.
Yeah.
No, and that's awesome. And I very much agree. Like, I joke around a lot. I mean, in this podcast, if we want to call it that, I've tried to be a little bit more muted in the sense and be more serious. Like, not that I'm totally open to being funny, but I think for me, it's the same thing. Like you say, especially if you can get someone laughing, and it's a connection in both ways. Like it makes you feel good. They're having a good time, and you just want to keep that going. This is kind of a side note, so to speak. But for me, what I've also learned is I have to not try. It just has to happen. If I'm trying to be funny, it is not funny at all. The other major point, though, and I think this is awesome. This is leading to a lot of, good stuff and common ground. Like you said, you were able to notice that it's difficult for you to ask people things in terms of even like calling a restaurant or something. And I've 1,000% been there. Not only I'd feel awkward for somewhat different reasons. A lot of it was just I was socially anxious in general. But I think what it comes down to, like you say, is being able to be introspective, to be able to look inside and be like, all right, I have this issue, or, hey, you know what, I'm working on this and that's good. I want to keep working on that, or I need to be aware of this or whatever. Like knowing who you are, knowing what makes you tick, kind of knowing maybe why does this make me nervous. And it's a very difficult thing. Is a lot of people will ask me like, well, what's your advice on such and such or this or that? And I think one of the most important things, and I've been talking about this with a lot of close friends and family, is being introspective. And that's not something you can necessarily teach. I can't teach someone how to be introspective. I can explain what it is, and I can try to encourage people. I think the easiest thing I can say to someone is to be aware of things. Like if a certain situation, you feel like, oh man, you know, every time I go to this place or I hang out with this person, like I get really upset. I'm like, well, pay attention to that and start to deconstruct as best you can. Well, why do I feel this way? But again, that's not an easily teachable skill. It's a very deep level. But I think the more you can be introspective, the more then you are able to change certain things, or just be like, well, this is kind of how I am. I acknowledge that. Let's leave that where it is. The other thing I wanted to say before I forget, because I meant to tell you guys this. So there's a Audible book that I'm listening to. It's also a regular book, in case you're wondering. So this guy's name, I'm gonna look at it because I can't remember his name. It's very unique. His name is Dr. Rangan Chatterjee. Chatterjee. It's called The Stress Solution. And one of the chapters, I think the entire chapter actually is dedicated to friends, family, and a sense of community. And he repetitively uses the word MOAI. He says building your MOAI. He has an English accent and he's, you know, from the UK. So he says it slightly different. But I'm like, oh my God, I know what that word means because I have friends and I have their shirt. And yeah.
Wow.
So I thought that was really cool, and I wanted to make a point to tell you guys that. Another thing I was thinking about, I've been trying to be good and make notes for these interactions and stuff, so I'm not just completely flying off the handle. But one thing I was thinking about the other day, and I have thought about with this in reference to you guys specifically. I think there are things that we do to improve ourselves where after a while it just becomes what you do. Like for me, you know, I do the Wim Hof breathing every day. Since the lockdown, so to speak, I've been doing cold showers every day as well. And those aren't necessarily, if you think about it, like, well, that's quite a little bit to dedicate. You know, you're doing 40 minutes because I do 2 sessions of the breathing and then a cold shower. That's dedicating time, but it's just become something that I do. And the one day I had more or less just done that, and you know, nothing else too special. And I was like, you didn't do anything today. I was like, well, you did do that. It's just become something that you do. Right. And I think what I've noticed with you guys, and obviously expand on this and correct me if I'm wrong as well, but you guys are so good about physical fitness and working out that I would imagine for the two of you, that's just what you do. And you don't even think of it as like, oh, that was a good accomplishment.
No, yeah, that's a very good point, because sometimes I do struggle. It's like, oh my gosh, like, what did I accomplish today? Like, I'm trying to, you know, grow MOAI. We're trying to do this, but I didn't really, I feel like I didn't accomplish anything. But then I sit back and yeah, you bring up a great point. It's like, well, wait, I went to the gym twice today and we were there 2 hours each time. That's 4 hours. I'm working on, you know, my physical body. I'm trying to stay healthy. We stuck to our diets today. You know, we put in a lot of really good nourishing foods, and it's a great point that sometimes those things are often overlooked. The things that we do accomplish have just become normal day-to-day routines.
Well, I know also it's like the flip side of that is that when we don't do it though, we beat ourselves up like, oh, I didn't do anything. I didn't do Wim Hof today. I didn't take a cold shower today. I didn't go to the gym today. So we're hypersensitive of it when we don't do it, but then we don't acknowledge it oftentimes when we do it as an accomplishment. So it's like, yeah, I've noticed myself doing that because the gym is not only is it I guess for our physical health, but for me, like I started really loving the gym, gosh, I don't know, like 4 years ago. And I used to do it after my day job. So it was always in the evening. And it was like the perfect way for me to de-stress. It was like whatever went on in my day, you know what, right now I'm focused on just being the best that I can be, lifting heavier, lifting harder, you know, just really trying to work on myself. And I think that type of, because when you're lifting, you almost get that introspection that you're talking about, where you're thinking that, okay, you know, does this feel better than it did yesterday? You're kind of asking yourself these questions about your physical self and your physical performance. But I think that that's kind of like, it can be like a training ground, or same with, you know, martial arts, where you're thinking, okay, I need to, I need to watch for this move. Like you're constantly probably talking in your head to a degree about what's happening in the moment. And I think that can be a great training ground for introspection of just ourselves and being aware, like you're saying, like, okay, wait, why did I do that? Or why does that bother me so much? Or why am I so afraid of doing this? Asking those questions can really help with that.
Well, and I think the other thing too that this kind of alludes to, and I totally agree with, is physical workouts and mental workouts, shall we say. I think they're very much synergistic. You know, like you say, you go to lift and you get in that headspace of being able to kind of focus on what you're doing, and you're not thinking about all the stressors of everyday life. And it's the other side of that is like, you know, if I'm meditating or doing yoga or something that's probably more associated with the mind, if you get in a good headspace, you're more likely then to that day or the next day be like, you know what, let me go work out for a while, because now you feel that inner spiritual energy, shall we say, for lack of a better way to put it. So it's very much, I think it's very, they're synergistic, and most people, I would say, likely accentuate one over the other. But I think anyone who's in a really good space incorporates a little bit of both, and there's definitely overlap. So I'm trying to think. First time I got a lag.
I mean, so I agree with that, with going one way 100% and then the other way 0%. Like so many times where I've been, philosophically seeking or spiritually seeking, that sometimes the physical aspects of what I'm doing kind of go by the wayside, because for me, I've always kind of processed it in my mind as like, I'm super close spiritually or philosophically right now, that I'm just so intelligent that I don't need to be fake and show off my body or be healthy. And it's more so an aspect of just looking at other people and that being fake. Whereas it's, listen, we need both. Like, you need to be able to breathe. You need to be able to run. You need to be able to make sure you're eating good foods that are nourishing for you. Like, I could be super spiritual and sitting at home and eating M&Ms and Big Macs all day long and be a very philosophical, intelligent person, but be in terrible shape, physically, and not know how long I'm going to live. Whereas in the same aspect, that when I'm lifting heavy and my diet's on track and I'm just super strong, I can be like, man, like I'm able to do a lot of things by myself. Like I got this. Like I don't really need any help with calming myself, thinking about things. I don't have time for all of that stuff. I don't have time to settle down and think, who am I? I'm like, look at me, look at who I am, look at what I've built, look what I've been doing. So like you said, yeah, you can get too far drastically to one side or another. And I've caught myself doing that a number of times, where you just get so geared up for that one thing, you're excited about it, and it's just all or nothing, you know what I mean? So
instead of being more of a middle ground, like you talked about with martial arts, what the flow and great. Like there's always, there can be a middle ground sometimes that is more beneficial than being fully on one side.
Very true.
No, and this I'm backpedaling a little bit, but this I think goes into like what you said with lifting, or with anything for that matter. When you're able to focus exactly on what you're doing and not worry about, the back of your head, oh, I got to go do this later. Oh, I have this tomorrow. Oh, I have this appointment. Bruce Lee, it's a very simple line and some people could almost overlook it, but it's Enter the Dragon, actually. He's working with a student and he says, don't think, feel. And it's very true, and it's very powerful when you can just be in an experience and feel. And in regards to martial arts specifically, in the classes that I take, we start off with what my teacher calls reflex drills. So it's you partner up with someone, they throw whatever strike they want to, and then you do a follow-up, and then vice versa. So you don't know what's coming, and the whole point of it is so that you're not anticipating. Now, you can get in the bad habit of anticipating, and one thing I struggled with when I started doing it was I still struggle with being a perfectionist, and I always want to do things the right way, the best way, this, that, or the other. So whereas I had a lot of background in different styles in addition to the style that I'm doing, whatever would come at me, I'd be worried about, oh my God, did I do this the Wing Chun way, which is the style of Kung Fu that I'm doing. And instead of just letting go and doing it, and it took me a while, but I had to just be like, don't worry about if this is fitting the box of your style. Do it. And either if, you know, my teacher thinks there's a better way, he'll throw it out there. There've been a lot of occasions too where he's very open-minded. He'll be like, you know what, I really like that. You know, this is my perspective, but that's fine. So I think it's, again, with anything, you know, like I said, it doesn't have to be martial arts. It could be lifting weights. It could be running. It could be painting, drawing, anything. You know, when you're able to zero in on what you're doing and not overthink it and not think about, well, what if this problem happens? Well, what if I don't do this? Well, what if I can't lift that much weight? Well, what if I'm too tired now? All that stuff just gets in the way, and it's a difficult place to get to, but I think that's kind of the ultimate technique, so to speak, is to have no technique. Again, a Bruce Lee quote.
Well, I know to tie kind of right into that is that Chad and I are almost polar opposites when it comes to this. Is that I'm a very in the now kind of. I enjoy what's happening around me. I go someplace just to be there, not to. I don't really think a lot. Like I don't have a constant voice in my head about, oh crap, I should be doing this, or just I'm very much in the present in a lot of ways. And part of the downside of that is that I'm not a super great planner. So I don't always think about, well, what if this happens? What am I going to do? Or have I thought about how I'm going to, you know, do this thing? Or what about the future? Like sometimes I don't even really think that deeply about, okay, 5 years from now, where do I want to be? You know, just thinking about some of these questions that can sometimes help direct you. I'm not naturally inclined to think that way. I'm just like, well, it's today. We're going to make the most out of it today, and we'll see what happens tomorrow. Versus Chad is more of always thinking about the future. Like, how can I be better tomorrow? How can I build this business up? How can I, you know, whether it's with baseball or it's anything, how can I be better? How can I do this? And so sometimes he really misses out on the in the present moments. Like he'll just be sitting on the couch next to me and just be like zoned out. Like I can talk to him and he's like, huh? I didn't hear a word you said. Like he's just so zoned out because he's in someplace else in his mind. But it's like we balance each other out sometimes because he helps me think about the future more and planning ahead, whether it's, you know, financially or physically or whatever. And sometimes I can help pull him back into the present, but it's definitely that balance too of living. That's kind of why we created the pause watch, because that has been such an important concept for us of learning that and balancing each other out with it.
Yeah, and I think you know, like you say, it's a matter of balance, like it is with many things. There's ups and downs. You know, if I definitely had to kind of teach myself to stay more in the moment, and now I've placed greater emphasis on it for me, only because I know that naturally I'm going to think about the future. Naturally, I'm going to try to plan ahead. So that's my default. I don't need to focus on that as much. And part of it, I know that why I do it. My parents and my mother specifically she was very protective, very worried when I was young. I had to tell her where I was going, what I was doing after. Like I had to map out my whole day. So to me, it became this sense of, all right, well, there's safety in planning in a way, because if I plan and I can answer all those questions, then that's it. That's the end of the questions, which drive me insane. But if I wasn't able to answer those questions, then it was, oh, she's going to call me like 5 times and be like, where are you going? What are you doing? So that's a very minor thing. And obviously people experience that, you know, with parents or whoever, maybe a worrisome partner. But as small as that sounds, I had to really, that's one of those things that I went back and I'm like, why does everything have to be planned? Because there was a while where I'd call someone, I'm like, hey, you know, do you want to hang out? And they'd be like, yeah, sure. I was like, all right, well, where should we go? All right, well, what time should we meet? And they're like, what? Whoa. Like, what? Why don't we just say we're going to hang out? We'll get together. We'll go from there. I'm like, well, that's not going to work for me because I need to know when. And I had to start to look at that and then teach myself to just like, dude, just let it go. Just let go. Just let things happen. And I think for me, that's helped a lot when I can just let things go, let things happen, you know, with anything. I mean, like for this situation specifically, I know that if I were to try and script this entire interview, so to speak, I would have been very, very mechanical. There wouldn't have been as many good points. So like you said, there's a time to plan, but there's also a time to just, whatever's going to happen needs to just happen.
Yeah, I agree
Yeah,
with that
definitely agree with
100%.
that. Mhm.
Yeah, because I think there's so many times where you start planning and you can get to a point where you say, okay, well, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and then I'll get to this later because I can't do it right now because it's just not the perfect time to do this. And I heard a good quote today. Someone said, later almost never happens. So when you put things aside because you're worried about planning or you're fearful of doing them right now in the now, there's so many opportunities that we could do now or that we with maybe not as good effort or they don't seem as good in our minds. But there's so many times where we say, I'm going to do this later. I'm going to do this later. It goes on the back burner and later never comes, never happens. And I was like, wow. Yeah. When I say later, there's a number of times where it just gets lost in my mind and that never comes to fruition.
No, and I think that's an awesome point that actually is something good that I can speak about. And that, like you say, I think everyone, you have that gets in your head about, it's like, oh, well, you know what? I'd like to start doing videos with other people. But it's like, oh, but I got to wait till so-and-so is ready. Oh, but I don't have the right lighting. Oh, but my equipment's not that good. Oh, well, I'll wait till I get this. And if it becomes this, all right, when I'm ready, even, let's forget about when it's perfect. When I'm ready, I'll do it. Like you say, ready never happens in a lot of situations. And even now talking with you guys, I've had this idea for a long time, specifically getting you guys on because I was like, you know what, I want to connect with other influencers. I don't love that word, but it's the first one that came to mind. And it was a lot of like, what also was discouraging is I tried a few people and I get it. They weren't being mean, but everyone's focused on, you're trying to kind of make your own content. And it's like, oh, well, let me see if I can pencil you in. But the only way that any of this came to be was I had to be like, well, all right, some of the people who I know who are doing similar things are too busy. So why don't I just take someone who I know, a family member or a friend, and I had done both, and that'll at least get the ball rolling. You have to start when things aren't perfect. I mean, absolutely, I want better equipment and whatnot, but it comes with time. And if you wait until later or you're ready, you're simply not going to achieve a lot of the things you'd like to. Or if you are, it's going to be way farther off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. For example, last week we did a Skype call with you just to talk back and forth. And just off of that video, I came up with enough content for like 4 or 5 videos because it's just the creativity where it's like, wow, we're talking about things like, well, nobody else has really talked about this. And wow, I can go on this circle where, Matt's more in the martial arts. He could take this concept and go there. I could go here with it. There's just so much room for creativity when we start talking back and forth to people about what it is we're going through or what it is we're learning, and then being able to come up with new content on our own based on these types of conversations. Like, I was just like amazed, like, wow, this is awesome. Like, I need to have more of this to get the juices flowing, to just be able, like, wow, okay, yeah, I forgot about all that. Now we're back into here learning this, and yeah.
Well, I know too. I really relate to, you're talking about when everything's ready, that's when I'll start. Like, that was my attitude about everything I don't want to do. Basically, it's like, that's my excuse, my go-to excuse. Well, I'm just not ready yet. When we first started doing video for MOAI, I don't know if you remembered seeing any of our book club videos, but we started with
the $1 Million Monk or something like that.
Yeah, that was one of them.
Yep.
He used to
Ferrari.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yep.
$1 Million Monk, whatever.
When we started that, Chad was like, no, we really need to start doing video. I think video is a great way for us to show who we are and be just really vulnerable with people, and just, we just got to figure it out. We got to figure out how to start doing video, because up to that point, we were just doing, photos, staged photos and everything, which I was super comfortable with. And I protested like big time, like, no, we don't need video. Video is not popular. Video is not going to go anywhere. And it's like, we don't even have a tripod. How are we going to shoot this? We don't have lighting. And Chad always has an answer that, is like, well, we'll shoot it outside. We live in Florida. It's always sunny. And we actually had this broken tripod that he had found. And he had like one of my hair ties. And we just wrapped the iPhone around it with the hair tie. And it's like this wonky cockeyed thing that we had to like tip the tripod so that it was upright. But you know what? It worked. And no one, watching the video would have known what we went through, the crappy equipment we had or anything like that. And it was just a matter of, you know what, we practice, we get better. And then, like, I don't know, almost a year in, we finally got a nice tripod with like a ring light so we could shoot anywhere. But it was just like, we did all those videos. We got so much practice with learning how to be comfortable, more comfortable on camera. And none of that would have happened if we would have just said, wait till you're ready. Because I would have never been ready. I would have protested it till the day I died, you know, because I just was uncomfortable with it. But it's just, you know, you just got to do it and then figure it out from there. And it doesn't have to be perfect. I always wanted everything to be perfect. And Chad's like, let's just do it. Like, it's not about being perfect. It's about it being done. So.
Well, no, that's true. And I think I almost try to challenge myself in some ways now. Like, I started doing it somewhat without thinking about it, but you know, like you guys constantly talk about being able to adapt, and I very much agree with that. That's a major premise in a lot of things that I do. You know, namely, of course, the martial arts, like Bruce Lee was all about. He constantly talked about adaptability. But when I started doing videos, you know, if you pay attention, my backdrops, so to speak, constantly changed, because it's like, oh, I'm going to do this at my aunt's house. Oh, I'm going to do this at my friend Tom's house. Oh, I'm going to do this over here. Because it was initially at the time I wasn't working formally. I was selling stuff on eBay, and my aunt has a dog, so she needs someone, or not need someone, but like I'd be like, oh, I'll go hang out with the dog. And I was like, I'll do a video over here while I'm at it. Why not? And I was going to my friend Tom's house the one day, and I was like, oh man, like, you know what? I haven't done my video this week. And just coincidentally, he's like, hey man, I'm stuck at work. Here's the code to get into my house. I was like, so how would you feel about me doing a video in your office? And he's like, go ahead, man. And so I constantly try and think about, I'm like, don't tell me why you can't do it, Matt. Tell me how you're going to do it. And even, you know, that goes for the Wim Hof breathing. It's 20 minutes, but when I started wanting to do 2 sessions a day, easily like, all right, well, I'll do one in the morning. But then I'm like, well, where do I put this other one? And initially, in my brother who was on here, Tulio, he's very much like you said, Chad can be. He has an answer for everything, which is great, and then super annoying at sometimes. Because I'll be like, oh man, I don't know how I'm gonna do that, and he's like, well, you just do this. Like, we were talking about working out a while back before I had started any of my own regimen, and he's in really good shape. He does Brazilian jiu-jitsu. He's been doing it for almost 5 years now. You know, he has great endurance. You know, he's got a very good strength in terms of the strength and conditioning that he does. So he works out very hard, and he's at a much higher level than I am. Absolutely. And I was trying to say the one day, I was like, ah, man, like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, there's this, but I worry about the shoulder issue and that. He's like, well, just do what I'm doing. I'm like, huh? He's like, yeah, you know. I'm like, dude, you're in really good shape. Just do like half the reps. I'm like, maybe I do like a quarter of the reps. Are you out of your mind? And but that's what it comes down to. And he was actually the one who suggested when I was like, man, I want to do another session of breathing. I want to see how it's going to affect me. I'm going through a rough time. I'm anxious. I'm stressed. I don't know when I can fit it in. He goes, do it before you go into work. I'm like, yeah, but then I'm going to be sitting in a car breathing with my eyes closed. What about people? He goes, do you know them? I'm like, no. Who cares? I was like, all right, fair enough. So especially now when it was cold out, like, you know, I'd lean the seat back and I'd do the breathing. And there were times where I'm like, people, I can only imagine what they're thinking, because started off where this dude's laying back and now the windows are all fogged up and you can't see him. And I'm like, well, guess we just got to worry about the fact that it's for me. And
Yeah. Yeah. Oh. But no, it's good to have people in your life like that. Like that's what we're talking about when it comes to like building relationships with accountability, whereas people who like bust your excuses into little smithereens to the point where you can't pick them up anymore. Like, that's what Chad is for me. That's what I try to be for him sometimes. Right. And just like, you know, having people that don't take your no for like, okay, well, then I guess you don't do it. It's like, no, dude, like, we're going to figure this out. You're going to do it with me. You know, we'll figure out how to do it. Half the reps or quarter of the reps, whatever. Like, that's a true, what you're talking about with, like, you know, true solid friendships, people that really help you through life, even in small ways, just repetitively, little things, you know, over and over again. Like, that's what we're craving to build and with other people.
But it's also super important to be surrounded by other people who, yes, they do make you better, but when you're asking a question or you're contemplating something, that they're asking you a better question to be able to solve the answer for yourself, as opposed to always giving you the answer. Like you brought up the guy, like, man, I don't ever like being around this guy, this jerk. And that person saying, well, yeah, he's a jerk. Like, don't be around him. Like, just stop being around him. Or, oh, you know, what should I'm trying to figure out what should I do here? Well, this is what you should do. And creating a better answer as maybe this is what you could do. That could be, you know, that's not as bad as telling you what you should do. But the best thing is trying to propose a question to the person to help them to get the answer on their own, as opposed to you giving them any sort of influence or any sort of answer and helping someone come up with the answer on their own. That's how true, I'm not really sure what the word for it is, but just awakening or enlightenment, that's where it really comes from, is us being able to answer the question for ourselves because someone asked us a better answer so that we can find it deep within ourselves.
Well, even in your example, like your brother Julio, like he didn't say, well, it doesn't matter. He said, well, why not?
Right.
Like, that's a question back to you, and then you arrived at, well, what the heck? I guess it doesn't really matter, right? Like, it always is more powerful when we come up with our own answer. Because even if someone tells us something that's true, we, in our own logical minds, like, well, I need to arrive at my own conclusions, you know,
right,
for it to matter, for it to be important. So if we can help others, or other people help us arrive at the best conclusion ourselves, like that's something that we strive to do, because we've really appreciated and seen how it makes a difference when people do it for us. Just like it makes a big difference. Like, oh wow, like I arrived at this myself through the course of someone asking me a lot of good questions that I probably would never have asked myself.
Well, no, and I agree. It's definitely most powerful when you come up with the answer for yourself on your own, because like you say, then if you came up with it, of course you're going to believe it. You know, if someone else says it, you can bring in all these things of yes, but, and there's this factor and that factor. And also the other thing, you know, like you said, Chad, with someone going off and saying, well, this is the way you should do it, or just do this. It's also, I think, and this is something I talk about a lot, especially in regards to mental health. And if you're supporting a friend who's going through depression or anxiety, even if you jump into, well, just do this, or this is the way to do it, that's very demoralizing. I think it's very important to validate someone's feelings, because sometimes without even knowing it, we're not necessarily always asking for the answer. We want someone to be supportive and to just kind of talk with us, talk it through per se. Like, you know, there are times when you'll be like, a small example from the past could be like, oh man, you know, I'm not socializing enough, or I need to get out there more. And someone could just be like, oh, well, just get on a dating app and start meeting people and join meetups and join this group and join that group. And then, you know, as in some ways it might sound odd, but then as that person, you're like, oh, dude, what's wrong with me? Like, yeah, I totally just need to do that. It's that simple. But now not only do you feel indirectly invalidated, now you're invalidating your own feelings. So I think, like you said, I think validation is very important. And I do agree that being able to ask better questions as opposed to having a better answer, because a better answer is debatable.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
But I think that this has been awesome. I've loved having you guys on. Thank you so much for coming on. And if you're ever interested in doing it again, please let me know. But for now,
awesome.
Thanks so much for allowing us to come on. It's always a pleasure to get to talk with you, get to just share our ideas, listen to what you're going through, listening to your ideas, and then just seeing how everything is connecting. And man, like I said, we're going to have more content now just because of this conversation, and how it's, again, going back to you. I feel like you made us stronger and better today just by the questions you asked us, and hopefully we were able to ask you questions or share some things that made you stronger, and so that we're able to, you know, strengthen as a community and become better.
No, absolutely. I fully agree. It's mutually beneficial, and it makes both parties grow. So, all right, everyone, thanks for watching. And until later, my friends, be well.
Peace out.